Hi. Today's history video will be about one of the most incredible characters in American politics, Theodore Roosevelt. If you wanted an American equivalent of Winston Churchill, it would be Theodore Roosevelt in so many different ways. First, the breadth of his knowledge, the volume of his literary output, the extent of his nationalism, and some would say imperialism. The only difference was that Roosevelt was largely a progressive figure, whereas Churchill was largely conservative. But otherwise, in personality and everything else, they were so similar. Roosevelt ranks on my personal list of the greatest presidents, after I put Washington, Lincoln, and Franklin Roosevelt up there on their pedestal, and then I put Reagan somewhere just a little short of it. I then would look at Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, probably as being the occupants of the next tier. He was just an incredible figure in our politics, and he influenced an entire generation of people in much the same way John Kennedy did. He entered politics as a crusading state assemblyman in New York, opposing Tammany Hall and wanting to change its political direction. He became police commissioner of New York and reformed that notoriously corrupt institution. And then in 1898, in 1896, he became the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And as we moved into the Spanish-American War, he was the person that really made sure that the American fleet was so strong that it made short work of the Spanish and basically won what was a naval war. But when the war broke out, he left Washington, joined the Army, set up a group called the Rough Riders, a cavalry regiment, and led them in the charge up San Juan Hill, but I think it was actually another hill that he conquered, and San Juan Hill became popularly known. But he was a war hero, and very short war, he was quite a hero. And as a war hero, he was elected governor of New York. And 2 years later, when he was up for re-election, Boss Conklin, the boss of New York State's Republican Party, hated Roosevelt because he was cleaning up corruption. And he said, I want to get rid of that damn cowboy because he had a cattle ranch out in the Dakotas, and made him vice president, where everybody assumed there would be no particular problem. And no sooner did he take office as vice president in March of 1901 than William McKinley was assassinated, and he became president. Roosevelt was truly the first modern American president. He was the first president whose lifestyle influenced the entire country, whose exploits were legendary, and the first one who really got involved in every aspect of the American government in a very proactive way. The teddy bear was named after him. He was hunting in Mississippi, and the owner of the land tied up a bear for him to shoot, and he refused to shoot the bear tied up. And a guy in Brooklyn made a teddy bear after that, named after him, and that's how it caught on. He was the first one to become aggressive against trusts. These organizations had controlled the market in the end of the 19th century. It was a monopoly. There was a sugar trust, a beef trust, a steel trust, a coal trust, an aluminum trust, a power trust, and railroad, and all of these groups would control their industry and force out all of the businesses by cutthroat competition, and then when they got the monopoly, jack up the prices. And he passed the first antitrust act, the Sherman Antitrust Act. It was the first effort to fight that. He intervened very publicly against J.P. Morgan, which he claimed was a large trust in the entire financial sector. And he really developed the whole concept of government intervention to promote fairness in the economy. He was the original architect of the Pure Food and Drug Act, the first agricultural meat inspection. He founded the entire area of land conservation. The entire environmental movement dates from him. He set up the system of national parks and wildlife areas throughout the country. He was conversant with the entire West from his personal travels, and he wanted to protect that. And he was an incredibly prolific and exciting man. He left office and virtually willed the presidency to William Howard Taft, a very corpulent, slow-moving guy, very fat, and he became the new president. And Roosevelt, from the minute he took office, didn't like what Taft was doing. He thought Taft was making his stuff too conservative. And in his second term, Roosevelt moved decisively to the left and began to really advocate things like women's suffrage and an income tax based on progressively graduated, and all kinds of stuff that was really formally associated with William Jennings Bryan, who was the leader of the Democratic Party. When Taft was president, Roosevelt went to Africa on a safari, and J.P. Morgan famously toasted, "Health to the lions." Well, when Roosevelt came back, he was mad at Taft for all the stuff he'd failed to do, and he set up a third party called the Bull Moose Party. Before he did that, he tried to get the Republican nomination, won all the primaries, but the bosses gave it to Taft instead because he was the regular. Roosevelt bolted, set up the Bull Moose Party, and then there was the election of 1912. It was the first election in American history, in fact, I think the only election, when the two-party system did not finish first and second. Wilson won, Roosevelt was second, and Taft, the Republican candidate, was a distant third. Everybody thought he would be president for a third term in 1920. He maintained his popularity, but he went on an expedition to Latin America, caught a disease, and eventually died of it late in 1919. And he was knocked out of contention, but he probably would have won a third term. So an incredible figure, changed the presidency into an active institution, changed government into an active participant in protecting food and the environment and wildlife and the rights of citizens, the rights of unions, the rights of consumers, and really became a tremendous American idol, and very much deserves the reputation that he's gotten. Thanks for watching.